is the term of, there's a term of art that's from the statute in there. I believe it's public infrastructure that it's noted, and that is, you have to tie your project to being in a public infrastructure project. This definitely is. This is something that the city can undertake and do. We've seen it all over the state. The big part will be, and unfortunately it is not for the city to do, or the administration. There can be an effort out to a campaign of some sort, one way or the other. Well, we can always inform.
Right.
We can provide information and just say, here is the statistics and information that we have, but we're not encouraging to vote for it or against it. And that can be done by this, in both ways, by the school district and the city. But any sort of private organization, should one be formed up to go out and back this, could go out and say, vote this way, vote yes for this if you want the wellness center, or vote no if you don't want to increase taxes. Those efforts can be undertaken. That will have to be outside the guise of what we do. And that will be, I think, the way that the education will be done one way or the other on it.
Gotcha.
Any other questions or comments? Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
I'll introduce the resolution.
All right. The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2022-7. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor: Wilkin, Camper, Coltermans, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Alright, thank you everyone again for all your help.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
You're gonna miss out on this parking space discussion, but totally get it.
It's riveting, but
I know.
we want Seward to beat Lexington.
You can always watch the video later, so you're fine.
Night.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
Number 4, consideration of a resolution to designate one parking space in front of 612 Seward Street as 10-minute parking. Correct.
A reiteration of an item we considered before. This was at the request of Shannon, and I'll have him speak, but we were kind of tasked with going back and taking a look if we could find any sort of uniform way to give you better guidance on these. And we worked with my street and traffic crew, and ultimately we could not come up with anything specific other than, unless we thought there was a definitive reason not to allow one of these, that the best is have the person that's requesting it come down here, have them say their piece rather than me, let them make the request, and then ultimately it's the determination of the city council, just vote it up or vote it down. And then we'll continue, and these will probably evolve over time if you do approve them, or the other one maybe is you blanket just tell us, we're not doing these. And then we could just tell that to everybody in the public if we turn them down and just say we're not doing these anywhere and you can't come request them anymore. We can handle that if that's kind of the guidance we get, but I wanted to invite Shannon here, who was kind of the original one that requested this when I tried to present it to you the first time, and so that's where we're at, but I'll turn it over to Shannon if you can introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Shannon Meyer, 1965 South Limerick Drive in Seward. Maybe I'll probably start with the justification of the theory behind this. So we're located in the 600 block of Seward Street. And my viewpoint on this is it would serve other businesses besides just ours. I guess I'm probably requesting and asking for it, but I think it would serve other businesses around us as well. So effectively, we have kind of all 2-hour parking in the downtown vicinity. The town is busy, so it's usually pretty full. We've got a lot of clients that are basically coming in and just picking up documents, dropping off documents, pretty quick stops. I think so in addition to us, I'd also see it serving Dragon Palace is across the street. They're doing mostly takeout business right now, a lot of pickups and drop off, just people coming in quickly to stop and pick it up. Merle's Flower Shop's kind of the same activity, Liz's Sweet Shop down the street. So the concept would be really around giving one parking spot for people that are just literally coming in, stop for a moment, grab something, drop it off, and then they're back out on their way. I guess I'd requested in front of our building, which is 612 Seward Street, but I'm flexible where it's at on the street. Because again, I think it would serve multiple businesses.
And we could definitely adjust. I know we had also the discussion of the time frame, but we didn't want to specifically make any difference from the last one we offered you. We're open to a time frame discussion, so we feel like, and I think Shannon and other downtown business can speak more to this, if they felt, hey, we're done by 8 o'clock. There's no reason to run this till midnight, because other than us, it is people going downtown and eating dinner for an extensive amount of time at the cafe at that point, or visiting Squire Wards, or going to one of our other facilities that they may have an extended time at. Then if that's the situation, we can also amend that time down here if you want to look at it. But we didn't want to change how it was offered. I think midnight was also getting into consideration of some of our situations with downtown parking, snow removal, and other things that we do with the 2-hour parking. So.
Yeah, and I would envision it as a 24-hour, 10-minute space. I mean, if it's the same schedule as the 2-hour parking currently or something like that. You know, from my perspective, the goal is really during business hours, you know, that 8 to 5 mark.
Who's monitoring it?
The CSO, as we are now, and so if it becomes a problem, we would receive complaints and say, hey, it's constant. There's always people just parking in the 10-minute spot and then sitting there for a half hour, 2 hours, and then we would start marking and doing enforcement the same way. The good part is I'm guessing that our CSO can mark that and then walk around the block, mark some other ones. By the time they get back, the 10 minutes is up, and they can try to sort that out with the vehicle that's in question. But ultimately, it'll be the CSO. So, and we try to get back into that again. If you understand our employment situation, we have a pretty extensive opening for that CSO position, and even once hired, to transition Shannon from dispatch over took even longer. And so I think people got pretty lax down there, knowing that no one was coming around doing too much. And so now Chief's here, and he's him and his staff have trained up Shannon pretty well, and he seems to, I see him out my window.
Oh, he was out last week.
So he's out there and about and trying to make those communications, and he'll get used to. I mean, it's a lot of the same vehicles and a lot of the same faces that he sees, and so he's able to try and work on that and get it alleviated. But that's the enforcement mechanism. It has to be PD, and it has to ultimately most likely be the CSO.
So how many other or additional requests like this will we be getting in probably the next 2 weeks?
We had one other pending one, and now after the conversation I've had with that store owner, I think they're gonna wait, and they're gonna kind of see how things go, and then go from there. They've kind of transitioned their plan for delivery and some other things to be more functional, and so I think that was the only other one I've ever received, and so I think that one's on hold. You won't receive it until that business kind of gets going. So, and it's not. I don't think it's a secret. It's Sam over with Jimmy John's as he prepares that. But sounds like he's gonna be pretty aggressive on the bike delivery and some other stuff. So they're not gonna see as much daytime vehicle delivery as his hope.
So Greg, could this be limited going forward, that we only allow one of these per block?
Block, or you could say block. I mean, as Shannon talked about, obviously during is on the other side of the street, but it's not a huge impediment to.
Well, like between say 6th and 7th, that's a block to
Yep.
me.
On both sides of the street.
One for both sides.
Yep.
Yeah, we could do that.
You guys can
I
do
mean,
it.
that would clarify things
Yep.
for the requests on your behalf. If there's already one there and someone says, can we have it on the other side, you just say no, there's already one there.
Well, the only thing is we would rather bring it to the council so that you can make a policy decision if maybe the other request makes more sense. And so, cause like, he's open to wherever, he just wants it to be accessible for his customers or clients. And so, you could have a blanket policy of one per capita or one per block or however you wanna structure it. But just keep in mind then, it does create a little bit of confusion if someone has an idea that administration or staff is like, well, God, that actually would be a better place for this.
Can we just do them all in front of the courthouse?
We'd wanna bring them to you guys as well, so.
Would that work? Would that be
Yeah.
close enough to your business? I think that's a great solution. Just put them all right out in front of the courthouse.
There's I think there's an
understand.
agenda item request element of the agenda here later on that we could do. But I think for ease of my staff, because these are intensive when we get in and do the maps and stuff, any sort of policy guidance is better. And that sort of guidance, one per block, and then we make a recommendation. You still ultimately have to approve a resolution to designate it.
That makes
but-
sense.
I like that.
So,
That way you can decide where it would be, but we can say, yeah,
Well,
and we don't have to have them everywhere.
No.
It just,
Right.
And I think parking,
Necessitates it.
and this is kind of a bigger parking discussion, as Councilor Hendricks alluded to, is that being able to, you know, they're familiar faces. The offenders are familiar faces, which is code for they either own the building or they work down there. You know, and so that's part of a bigger discussion of, you know, it puts us in a tough spot, and by us I mean law enforcement and the community service officer, because, you know, you get you get the complaint that go enforce parking, there's no place to park. So you enforce parking, when you get the complaint to the people who wanna park in front of their business, you recognize, you drive through and you know that's who Cadillac that is, you know whose truck that is. I mean, these aren't secret, but you know, that's part of it just puts us in a tough spot, so it's more of like a Goldilocks situation of, okay, what's the perfect amount of enforcement? Cause we can go around, and I guarantee you, if we were, you know, vigilant in enforcing this, we'd get complaints, and then if we stop enforcing it, we get complaints, and so figuring out what that looks like, and you know, we had a discussion, I don't know, a year or two ago about whether there was enough parking downtown, and the reality is that, I mean, Greg walked around downtown, and basically when you got up to 60 empty spots, you stopped counting. It's just, the question isn't how much, isn't whether there's adequate parking downtown. The real question is how far are you willing to walk from your parking spot to your destination? And I'm guessing it's about 60 feet, give or take. And so that's part of a bigger discussion, because there is a lot of parking around, for example, the band shell and on those side streets that's not restricted. And it's just a matter of convincing business owners and and employees to utilize that parking. I mean, Jones Bank has the lot over behind RO's, you know, for example, and we have the lot next to Bottle Rocket, that's public, you know. So there are parking places, it's just how far do you wanna walk?
it's all relative, because if you're in the Haymarket, walking 3 blocks is no big deal. When
Or-
you find a parking spot.
Or it's, you know,
4.
I don't wanna walk, you know, more than 60 feet to a business downtown, but I'll park at Walmart and walk, you know, 1,000 feet to the mill. If you count all the distance to Walmart and then all the way through Walmart and then back again, I don't think twice about that. So, I mean, it's
I
just,
never thought of it that way.
it's all, you know, it's all relative, so, anyway, I digress. However, any other questions or comments on this item?
So Greg, if we wanted to make some other restrictions, we would have to amend this current resolution, right?
we would for time. I think the time is probably the biggest one on this one. And we just didn't want to adjust that without some conversation about it, but we were open to a time adjustment on this one.
I think mirroring.
I have a question for you. So what happens, this passes, all is good, the sign gets put up, and you're telling your customer, yeah, just park out in the 10-minute parking spot out here, we'll run the papers out to you. And by the time your client pulls around the block 7 times because somebody else is there for another business, is it as proactive of an idea as it should have been?
Well, in that viewpoint, they're probably still gonna have to go find another spot. I mean, I guess my goal is to at least give some option and opportunity. There's likely gonna be multiple people wanting to use it, and it's not gonna be available all the time. I mean, to your comments about learning to walk, I've lived in a lot of different cities. I won't let none of my staff are allowed to park in front of our building. I think that's an issue with the building owners. My viewpoint is if I'm parking in front of it, then my customers can't get to me, and they're the ones that actually pay me to run my business. So we park in the 24-hour by the Fast Mart. That is the shortest walk I've ever had in my working career.
Right. But then
So it's
the
all
ones
relative.
that work across the street from where he parks are now parked in a lot that is supposed to be 2-hour parking but not labeled, and now that's where the domino effect goes, which parking will always be a problem in Seward, so.
questions or comments?
I was just gonna say, I like the idea of the time frame mirroring what is currently in force down there. But, I mean, if we get, you know, I don't know how we do
What,
it.
6 AM to 12 AM?
Say basically.
You're
What
allowed
is,
to park there. Technically, you're not allowed to park after 12 unless you have a downtown
Right.
permit. That's a
Well,
different
yeah,
issue.
I don't know what it is, I don't recall.
Well,
Is it,
is it gonna matter if the CSO is off work anyways?
Well, that's gonna be my
Just-
point,
yeah.
if it's during
There's
working hours.
no enforcement's gonna go on, but we don't, we also don't wanna confuse people. I mean, we
if
got,
we don't have to change the, I'd say we just proceed with it.
we can start with it and change it. It really just takes a sign at that point, so. It's not a huge one other than Bob has to order signs and he'll get grumpy, but we got a lot of, you'll see here later on, we're gonna have a lot of signs to order, so. What's one more at this point?
My only comment is on the location, cause on that half of the block, there's only 5 spots, so taking one of those for that, would it be possible to look further down, like right next to the handicap spot, one for visibility to see if it's open or not, and 2, if it is, it alleviates some of that traffic stopping to wait for somebody to back up from the highway off of 15 would be the only thing. Or if that's even an issue. But I think further away from the highway gives more time for, if somebody is waiting for who knows how long, it's not gonna back up into the highway and cause another issue. At least you'd have 3-4 cars able to wait to get through at that point.
And you assume that 10-minute spot's gonna be the one with the most in and out. If you assume those that aren't in 10-minute spots will be there longer.
It's designed for it, yeah. But I think that way it gives an easier line of sight, cause the handicap spot's not gonna be full as often as the other ones are. So you'll be able to see if it is open or not right away. And if our people seeing somebody go in,
So you're saying move it to,
move it to the west, so
In front
it
of
would-
Merle's.
right in
Right,
front of
I see,
Burroughs where
yeah.
the handicap stall is, right next to it. Cause I think it would just, as like I
Well,
said,
isn't
people
there
are
a
driving
handicap?
around.
There's a handicap on that block to
Yeah.
the east. The first stall is a handicap stall.
To the east
That's
side.
Right,
completely.
but if you have
There.
people
Yeah.
coming around the corner waiting to back out, you have one car sitting there as the person's trying to back out, is what I'm saying. If we move it further west, it alleviates the potential of that holding up traffic on 15, since there is no right turning lane there as well.
Mike, do you have some thoughts on that?
We may, to more completely comply with ADA, have to move that spot similar to what we did by the ferry building, and then over to where Cattle Bank is, to create the proper ramp.
You're talking about the
Actually forcing
handicap
people-
one on the
Pardon me?
corner? You're talking about the handicap stall on
All
the
of them
corner?
that are on the corner, they were put probably for ease, not having to cut curb ramps into curbs, but that is the proper way. They created a lot of spots around the CBD that utilize the alley, which is really not, you don't wanna force handicapped people to travel into the alleyway needlessly. So, long-term, you may wanna move that handicap spot, is my point.
My only other concern, and I don't want to belabor this in any way, is if we do recommend moving it, I think it's only fair to let the business owner that we're trying to move it in front of be notified before we vote on it. Versus this request where the property owner adjacent to it is before us and requesting it. And so I'd try to do my due diligence to go talk to Merle's before we would finalize that, if that's the route you wanna go. But if you wanna go with this one, then I don't have any specific concerns. And again, we can realign it or move it later on if we're monitoring and PD's having complaints or issues, or the CSO is noticing a lot of problems when they're out and about. Or Shannon's clients or anybody else that's going down there and utilizing it, complaining about our location, we can obviously move it. The sign just gets moved down the block and put in a pole and pull a pole. There might actually be a pole here already, I don't know what.
looks like it goes on the lamp post.
Yes, it's all on lampposts, so we're not putting a pole in the ground anyway, so we can just easily keep the sign and move it down somewhere else if you wanna move it later.
So Greg, going forward, if we did wanna limit it to So like one per block, that would be more of an ordinance issue, that wouldn't be.
I don't know that we would do it by ordinance. I think if you just gave us the general sense that this is what we're looking for, we can implement that.
You can,
And
without.
without formal action. There's not good ways to do that through policies and other things. You know, if it was something more strict where we wanted to enforce it to the level of, this is a design mechanism, but it's downtown. We're not doing a lot of downtown parking design anymore, where somebody's building a whole new block for us, where we'll have, versus development out in Greenfield, where we would implement that and make that a part of the process. So I think this one's just generally giving us some guidance, and if it's, hey, we really don't wanna see more than one on a block, as we called it. We don't, that's kind of our lay of the land, we can provide that to people that are requesting them.
So that could be part of the motion, right?
Could be,
When you introduce the resolution.
so. I don't know, I'll leave that to Kelly. Okay.
You'll probably technically amend the resolution first, right? Adopt the amended resolution and then pass the actual resolution separate with the amended, right? The cleanest?
Yeah.
Okay, so is that what you wanna propose?
I would like to, yeah.
So I think you would make a motion to amend the resolution and state how you want to amend it, we can vote on that, and then you come back with, introduce the resolution as amended.
All right. I make a motion that we amend the resolution to limit the number of 10-minute parking stalls to one per block.
And by block, you mean one side
But-
of a block.
He means
The
both.
block being both sides of the street
Okay.
between 6th and 7th, or 7th
Okay,
and 8th.
just wanna make sure we have the
Yeah.
definitions. Okay, are we good with that?
Mhm.
Kelly, have any concerns with that? Okay, so we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
The motion and a second, is there any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Camper, Coltman, Miller, Streisand. Voting against, Singleton, Hendrickson. And that is 5-2.
Okay, motion carries. Did you wanna introduce the resolution as amended?
Yes, I'll introduce the resolution as amended.
Okay. The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2022-8 as amended. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Camper, Coltman, Miller, Streisand. Voting against, Singleton, Hendricks, 5-2.
Motion carries. Our resolution is adopted. Item number 5, resolution designating a private drive located between 3rd Street and 4th Street in C&G, first edition as Addie Lane. Tim, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. This was born out of the realization that we have an addressing issue along Ash Street, between 3rd and 4th. As you recall, the old middle school property is being developed as residential. Currently, there's 4 residents along Ash Street that they back against the street, but they are addressed as Ash Street. So for the sake of 911 or whatever, if they get a call, they go rolling out on Ash Street, and there's no address, there's no sidewalk, there's no address, there's no nothing. So, and we got 3 more residents going in this week. There is a private lane there, and in discussions with the developer, we talked to him and said, hey, can we just name this street and then address these 7 properties off of that street? It's a private lane, it would be maintained by the HOA and or the developer, but everything would be named off of that street, that one block of Addie Lane. He requested that name. He's going to pay for the sign, he's gonna pay for the install, and then it would be a blue sign recognizing it as a private lane not maintained by the city of Seward. We don't know that that was built to City of Seward standards, so we don't want to take that street over for the purposes of maintenance or snow removal or anything like that. So that's where we're at.
Who's Addie?
Addie, I assume, is a child of the developer.
Okay.
Tim, how many other streets like this do we have? Like Davison Drive would be one, right?
I actually drove
green.
a couple weeks ago, 14, 15 different private lanes.
Okay.
As a result, in a discussion with Administrator Butcher, we are going to re-sign all the personal driveways, streets, whatever, with blue signs. We let Concordia know, we let the fairgrounds know, there's no opposition. That, that way our city people know they're plowing snow. Blue sign, we don't take care of that street. Resident goes down the street, has an issue with the street, it's a blue sign, they know it's not us.
And they're all 911 compliant as far as.
Yeah.
That was dedicated to the city for public use, correct?
It's a public access easement similar to, the example I like to use is the roadway in front of Walmart in Orchlands. That is not maintained or owned by the city, but the public has access to it freely and can traverse back and forth to access the different properties there. That's exactly what almost all of that internal CNG Old Middle School, all of the little interconnectivities there are like that. It has nothing that says it has to be through. So our situation back in the day with the planters between the Rock parking lot and the chiropractic care and dental area, it's private. It has access. You can get to all portions of it, but because of the people just zooming through it like it was a street or a designated right-of-way, it's not. And so that's what they did there. This is very similar. So,
But
dedicated.
it still can be used by the public.
Yes. So if you're gonna go see your
Even
friend,
though it's a private
yep,
lane.
you're gonna go see your friend that lives down on Addie Lane. You can drive down there and go in. And if you are gonna go to, because it also connects up to the north, as those develop as well. If there's some more commercial development, you can go up there and pull into a parking lot and traverse.
So, does any, because there is a dedication to the city for the public, does any documentation need to have any addition of this
Nope.
name on there at all?
It sits within the plat, so it's dedicated on the plat already.
Okay.
No different than we wouldn't change the plat if we renamed the road at this point.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Just wanna make sure you didn't have a daughter named Addie or something.
Not mine. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Any other questions or comments from the council? Otherwise, someone can introduce the resolution.
I'll introduce a resolution.
Alright. The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2022-9. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
I so move.
Second.
With a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Camper, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Alright, item number 6, resolution designating city items as surplus.
This is a requirement by our city code in the process that we undertake to designate stuff surplus. We were asking questions on why we did this, because we've done this a few times. I think one of the more recent times I got Larry in the electric department to be my auctioneer. It was quite fun afternoon out at the Horseshoe. But we list items on here. I can't remember what the floor is. It might be a nominal amount. It's maybe something we want to revisit in the future, because I don't think these thresholds have been moved since the 80s. And so there may be things that are under a certain amount where you're just like, no, you guys are good. You can just dispose of it. We don't need to have you put it on a list and sit it in a room for 6 months or whatever it may be and have nobody ever bid on it or want it. But that's what we've undertaken here. And so you see all the items that are listed. We'll list these as surplus. And then Derek will be working to kind of put something out there in the public. What?
Why aren't we keeping the pop machine and putting it in here?
Yeah. Glad the ice machine's not listed. That thing is possessed. So, but we'll list this stuff, and then Derek will kind of create a little online catalog, and people can take a look at it. We'll put up a date that says, hey, you can stop by, kind of like a silent auction. Just put down a bid, and let us know, and then we'll tally it all up. And whatever got bid on, and everything else we'll either scrap, give to some needy group, or trash. and that's just, but it's kind of a cumbersome project, especially for the lower end stuff, where you're like, really, yeah, you guys can just throw that chair away, that's cool. You don't need to deal with that, but we can figure that out later. We just wanted to take this, there's a few items that we actually had the public inquire about. I think there's a vehicle on there, one of the old police cruisers is just hanging out down in the horseshoe that somebody inquired about. I'm like, whoa, somebody's interested, let's see what we can do to move this thing, and not, Bob Core doesn't need it anymore, and no one else needed it within any other department, so. Good time to redo this and kind of do some spring cleaning here as we gear up.
And this goes up when, you said?
Whenever you're ready to get it put up, and then we'll put a reasonable amount of time, like 30 days on it, or something like that. We don't go too long, because we don't want to sit there with all this stuff all gathered up in one spot, but we'll organize it and then follow that process that I explained.
Resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2022-10. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
I so moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Camper, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Next, item number 7, consideration of approval of a revised interlocal agreement with the Seward County Solid Waste Management Agency. Greg.
Councilmember Singleton, our designated rep to the Solid Waste Agency, can correct me if I'm wrong, but this just adds Garland.
That's exactly
That's all it does. And all of the different agencies and political subdivisions that make up the Solid Waste Agency had to approve this. It literally just adds the village of Garland. That's it.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Motion to approve the revised interlocal agreement.
We have a motion and a second from Singleton. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Camper, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Alright, item number 8, recommend Justin S. Baldinger as manager of Cobblestone Hotels and Suites, 2575 Progressive Road, Class I liquor license. Greg.
Yep, just a change of manager, no specific issues that I think were identified or brought to city administration's attention, and so I can answer any questions you have.
Motion? Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Camper, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Item number 9, consideration of a request from city administration for the approval of sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages at the Lead Senior Center for the Employee Annual Awards Banquet. Greg.
I haven't done this in a few years due to COVID. We did something different last year or so. I think that whole situation broke out right after our last awards banquet. Everything went downhill a week later. And so with the kind of the growth of the city and new employees and recognition of retirees and things like that, we just felt like we were really cramped in the Garden Museum. It was a great venue, a lot of fun, a lot of people liked it, got to see it that maybe hadn't gone there, but we were packed in there, and I think we're going to have a bigger turnout than before even. And so we kind of looked at different facilities, but we also didn't want to pay for something that just felt gargantuan, like the Ag Pavilion or Harvest Hall at this point. And so we had a few different options, and ultimately we settled on, just due to the nature of what we could get in there, the Senior Center. I think they've had it there before in the past. Ultimately, we're going to go with Spare Time is going to be our food provider, and also get the SDL on this one. And so that's a place that we've done it before with Spare Time in regards to them having SDLs there, so we don't need to approve that. But if we are selling anything on city property, alcoholic beverages, we do have to approve that separately. That's what this item is. The event will be held, I think we were passing it around, it'll be on March 5th.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments from the council? If not, entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Camper, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Next, we have the city administrator's report.
I'll just keep it brief. Working on a lot of economic development projects, closeouts of LBA 40s, TIF projects, gearing up for Pet Source expansion TIF. That'll be coming down the line in March. So that, you'll get to see that. And then a lot on the wellness center, just kind of gearing up for this effort tonight. A lot of work went into that. And so finishing out grants that are due. Me and Derek are going back to submit a grant tonight still. So we have fun ahead for us for the evening. But I can answer any questions you have in the report.
Any questions or comments from the council, or entertain a motion to accept the report?
Make a motion to accept the report.
Second.
Motion and a second, is there further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes, please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Camper, Coleman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Alright, do we have any future requests for council agenda items or administrative action? Going once, going twice, okay. Jonathan Jank, upcoming events.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A few quick things here. The City of Seward, Southeast Nebraska Development District, the Nebraska State Historic Preservation Office, and SCCDP will be hosting a Seward Downtown Revitalization Application Information Meeting on Thursday, February 17th at 6 p.m. in the basement conference room at our beautiful Seward Memorial Library. You're welcome to join us to keep up to date on how these grant dollars will be spent. Our next board meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 21st in Goner at Shea Bubba Cafe. Thanks to Councilmember Beck for her continued active participation on our board to represent the City of Seward. We're continuing to host the Zoom meetings on the last Thursday of each month at 1 p.m. about COVID-19 updates with Four Corners Health Department and other community sector partners. This will be held this month on Thursday, February 24th at 1. And I do have a special request in regards to parking. I don't know if this was shared at the last meeting or not. We do have Jimmy John's opening up here, starting on approximately March 1st, and they're going to be very, very busy, we anticipate, for the first 3 to 6 months. And so the request from Sam, the business owners, if you typically park on the courthouse square, especially on the east side, that please consider moving your vehicle to 24-hour parking, at least during the first 6 months of operation to help with customer traffic. And thanks for considering this request. I actually brought this to the county. We talked with their HR department. Again, we're not asking for designated spots, but just to be mindful of 24-hour parking. To help with that, he's very excited to open up in the historic downtown district. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Alright, thank you, Jonathan. Yes, from the peanut gallery in the back.
Sorry, I've been remodeling this evening. I apologize for my appearance. Just a thank you to Mike, Tim, Bob Myers Street Crew, and Administrator Butcher. We do have the 2 ADA spots finally completed on the east side of the courthouse. We thank you for your contribution to that end, and I'm sure that they will get used.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it, thank you. Well, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, please register your vote. Please display the vote.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Camper, Coleman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.
Yeah, we're gonna open up a can of worms. I didn't know that.